that they are sharing that says sort of who they are or who they kind of
And why they
want
can't get
to
out of
be.
it, right? They can't get out of that loop of
It's
the
hard.
stuff you like.
It's
It's
hard to get out of
yeah.
it.
It's living in a world with commercials and uh let's just say curated television, right?
Sure.
Pre-programmed television where you had to wait for something to happen. If you were watching a series that had climactic endings, you actually had to wait till the following week. Um, it became all of the talk in school about what you saw. Oh my God, can you believe Dylan and Brenda broke up? Kelly's
Oh,
such a bitch.
that was hard times. Those were hard times.
I
The
watched
late 90s,
90210. I don't give a damn what you people say.
the late 90s were difficult.
You know, it was a different time, but um it is interesting that people are so attached to these things. It's like a drug, and I'm
Mhm,
trying to detox myself
mhm.
from scrolling. And I was reading your book, and I live in Mexico. It takes me too long to get hard copies of stuff. So I just asked for the PDF. My iPad that is Appless has broken, so I have to use my phone. And I took all the scrolling apps off my phone, and I found myself scrolling like my email. It's a drug, and we're addicting young people as soon as they can sit up their heads, and you give them an iPad. And we used to say, look how smart that kid is. They just work that iPad. That's what grandparents say. They can just work that iPad. And it's like, yeah, but they're not that smart. These aren't the kids that are programming VCRs. These aren't the kids that are writing code that had to, write the code for their HTML MySpace profile. These are kids, if you don't put it in front of them, they just don't see it. If it's not app based, don't understand it.
It's hard to get past that.
Like, very accepting as well of the surveillance technology. So you talk about in the book when you tell young people, let's just high school age, let's say junior seniors at high school, right? You're in that awesome in between age. If you're not quite an adult, but you have to start making adult decisions,
Mhm.
is what society says. And you start telling these people you're being surveilled. Do they just shrug their shoulders at you and go, whatever?
Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes even after we've kind of convinced them of everything, they still do. And that's okay because again, what they now know is what all of it's about. So we'll often talk about privacy.
Mm,
And sometimes what we'll also do is talk about labor. So when you're
mm,
talking to 16, 17-year-olds who are minors, when we start talking with them about like what it means to be sharing all of this data with a nameless, faceless corporation that is then using it. I sometimes will ask, like, do any of you get paid? Right? I mean, this is
mm,
labor. Our social media would be empty if it weren't for the users, particularly young users, right? I mean, I guess Facebook, grandma's totally fine with Facebook, but the
mhm.
cool social media. Uh, but they're not they're not paid like this. They're spending so much time, they're putting in so much information. It is a form of labor. There is no acknowledgement of their work. So once we start to kind of talk about it a little bit like that, things start to shift a little bit. I do, granted my students are over 18, but I do
Okay.
a project with my class where we actually go through and read the privacy policies and the terms of service for
Really?
their top. I ask them, what are your top social media sites, and then the next class I'll bring in the privacy policies or the terms of service, and I have them read them like line by line. And it's a little, it freaks them out a little bit, when you look at some of them where even in death users cannot sue, that once a pic is up there, that corporation owns your face.
Mhm.
uh, that if you are not allowed to use this technology under a certain age, but if you are using it, it's not their responsibility, right? That company doesn't need to figure out that you maybe like lied to them. So once we can kind of start to dig into that, it's not that they're going to get rid of this, right? I mean, this is for the most part their social life. And my goodness, how on earth could I potentially teach my class without some use of these technologies? It
Yeah.
just wouldn't work. We have 25,000 undergraduates at my institution. Like, how are we getting that grading done, right? So we recognize how necessary, to some extent, these technologies are. It's all the other stuff that we're usually kept in the dark or kept secret about. So what we try and do with anybody, young people in particular, certainly, but everybody, is to kind of talk about how we're being a little bit bamboozled and what might it mean to be less in the dark about this. This is the way our technologies are. It's not necessarily the way that they ought to be or the way that they could be. So we try and kind of present it as like, again, we're not here to tell you to turn your technology off. We're here to say, how about we learn more about what is happening with our technologies?
Do your kids ever feel like, and I'm starting to feel like this because maybe because I exist in this world of online media, right? And a lot of my friends that have shows like this, everyone's just so locked in to social media, like following Twitter things and starting and engaging in arguments. And, you know, young people are the same way, right? Engaging in gossip and drama, arguments and conversations. Does it, do you ever point out to them that sometimes that device is a bit of an anchor? Or is that hard to get across?
Well, certainly not at the beginning of the semester. One thing I do at the beginning of one of my classes at the beginning of the semester is, and I should figure out a way to do this in my other class too. Topic is different, so I'd have to change it a bit. But is I have them write, like, usually the first, second day of class, I have them write a pro con list of their media, and I let them define what they want that to be. Um, and then I hold on to it for the whole semester. And then we go through our thing and we do all of our stuff. And they absolutely read about surveillance technologies in a few different ways. And then I give them back their pro con list at the end of the year. And I don't really do much with it, to be honest. I just kind of let them ruminate on it a little bit, let them think about it, and
Mhm.
sort of what it means to see some of their technologies in a new or different light. I ban electronics in my classroom. You can't have your cell phone or your computer unless there's a documented need for it. And inevitably, I get a lot of pushback at the beginning of the semester, but at the end of the semester, I get a lot of comments about how, well, this was the only class I really like wasn't distracted in, like it was weird. um,
Yeah.
so I try and sort of model some of the ways, because if you stand up there and tell people, like, here's all the things that are bad for you, who cares, right? Like, who cares? Like, nobody's going to check in with that. Everybody's checking out from that. So instead, we sort of try and model, like, what might be another way of looking at this, or how might we take a break from our technologies, from our devices, in a way to sort of see them differently. So I always talk about, like, taking kind of like a critical approach or a critical distance, asking, engaging in a process of critical inquiry, that it's not about dislike. It's about taking a little bit of a step away so that we can see it and understand it a little bit differently. So, do they want to hear it? Probably not. And are they maybe getting something out of it that can help with their own way of processing information? I sure hope so.